Amanda Carter had never sought the spotlight. In the sterile, life-saving confines of a neonatal intensive care unit, she was rock, steady, methodical, and fiercely protective of the tiny lives she fought for every day. But here, cramped in, the cabin of Flight 846, traveling from New York to Los Angeles, she felt like just another weary mother, desperately trying to soothe her wailing baby, while the rest of the passengers silently turned against her. Elijah's cries cut through the drone of the engines, sharp and unyielding. His little fists waved in frustration, his face flushing red as he wrestled with discomfort. Amanda understood the reason behind his distress. At 6 months old, he was completely at a loss regarding the discomfort in his ears from the change in cabin pressure. She held him close, gently rocking him back and forth, murmuring reassurances that neither of them really believed would help. The passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A man 2 rows ahead let out a loud, exasperated sigh. A woman across the aisle shot Amanda a glare so fierce it could curdle milk. Someone muttered a complaint within earshot. Then came the voice, sharp and clipped, cutting through the tension. "Ma'am!" Lisa Reynolds, the flight attendant, crouched down beside Amanda's seat, her forced smile barely masking her irritation. "Would you like me to see if there's anything that can help?" Amanda glanced up, recognizing the flicker of judgment in Lisa's eyes. It was the same look she'd seen before, on strangers in coffee shops when Elijah would fuss in his stroller, on the hospital board members who questioned her ability to juggle medicine and motherhood, and on Daniel, who chose to walk away when he heard she was pregnant. "No, thank you," Amanda replied, striving to keep her tone steady. "I just need a little time." Lisa's smile grew tense. Mothers who come prepared usually know how to keep their babies comfortable. The words hit her like a slap, around her. The passengers became more aware of the situation, straightening in their seats and exchanging glances. Some smirked and a few nodded in agreement. Amanda felt the heat rise in her cheeks. A man behind her snorted. "Yeah, maybe she should have thought about that before bringing a baby on a plane." A woman added, sighing dramatically, "Honestly, people should be required to sedate their kids before flying." Shame wrapped around Amanda's throat like a noose. She yearned to explain, to defend herself, to make them see she wasn't a careless, clueless mother unprepared for this moment. She had taken every precaution, fed him prior to boarding, changed his diaper, packed pacifiers, brought pain relief drops, and held him according to pediatric advice. Yet despite her efforts, she felt as though she was failing. She swallowed hard, repositioning Elijah and gently bouncing him as his cries grew. Louder. Tears would not fall. She was determined. Lisa lingered nearby, observing with an expectation that Amanda would relent, apologize, and confess her shortcomings as a mother. Instead, Amanda murmured, "Babies cry. It is their nature." Lisa exhaled sharply through her nose. Indeed. "However, let us be mindful of the other passengers, shall we?" She straightened up and walked away, and Amanda could have sworn she caught a hint of a smirk as Lisa turned. The weight of humiliation pressed heavily on her chest. She recognized these individuals, not on a personal level, but she understood their type. Those who upon hearing a baby cry quickly dismissed the mother as an inconvenience, a problem to be rectified. None of them knew her true identity. None were aware that just a week prior she had saved a premature infant that could fit in her palm, that she had dedicated 14 hours to surgery, meticulously stitching tiny veins, and that she had fought for the lives of fragile infants. To them she was merely another woman who had erred by bringing a baby onto their cherished flight. Gradually, Elijah's cries began to soften into weary whimpers. Amanda rested her forehead against his soft curls, inhaling the comforting scent of baby shampoo and warmth. Her fingers traced gentle circles on his back when a voice from a few rows ahead interrupted her thoughts, low and authoritative, unmistakably belonging to someone accustomed to being heeded. Amanda lifted her head. Lisa, who had been pouring coffee at the galley, froze in place. The man stood up, adjusting his blazer. His presence commanded attention, not due to physical stature but because his voice carried the gravitas of someone significant. He was older, his hair touched with silver, and he had a measured gaze that made people reconsider their thoughts. Henry called out with clarity, and Amanda's breath hitched in surprise. Lisa blinked, clearly taken aback. "I was only trying to shame her," Henry inferred, his tone mild yet pointed, suggesting that was precisely the impression he got. A soft murmur rippled through the cabin. Passengers turned, suddenly aware, sensing a change in the dynamics. Lisa's stance grew more rigid. "I was merely offering assistance." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Because I caught you insinuating that she was unprepared. You suggested that a mother, a neonatologist at that, should somehow have the ability to prevent a 6-month-old baby from experiencing ear pain. Is this really what you meant by assistance?" Lisa's mouth fell open in disbelief. The other passengers began to stir, whispers bubbling up like a sudden wave. "A neonatologist? Hold on, she's a doctor? She saves babies for a living?" The weight of that realization crashed over the cabin like thunder. The man who had previously snorted was shifting uncomfortably in his seat now. The woman who sighed in annoyance suddenly found every detail in the in-flight magazine captivating. Blushing fiercely, Lisa struggled to find her words. "I didn't know," she finally stuttered. "Exactly," Henry replied smoothly. "You didn't know." Then he turned to Amanda, his expression softening. "Dr. Carter, it's a pleasure to see you again." Amanda swallowed hard. "Mr. Caldwell?" Lisa's eyes widened even more. That name was familiar. Henry Caldwell, the billionaire philanthropist who had poured millions into pediatric research, the man whose own grandchild had once been saved by a neonatal specialist. By her. Amanda met Lisa's gaze, and for the first time since they'd boarded the plane, she detected a hint of genuine shame. Lisa opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she murmured, "Dr. Carter, I'm so sorry." Amanda exhaled, tightening her hold on Elijah. That moment should have felt like validation, but instead it just felt draining. She nodded politely. "It's fine." Lisa hesitated. With one last glance at Amanda, she turned and hurried toward the galley, face still flushed. Amanda shifted in her seat, pressing a gentle kiss to Elijah's head. Babies cry, people judge. And occasionally, just occasionally, someone steps in to remind the world that a mother's worth is never up for debate. The hum of the airplane settled into a steady rhythm, yet Amanda's heartbeat wouldn't calm. Even as the chatter around her faded and passengers shifted uneasily, she felt the lingering weight of their previous judgment. The shame didn't vanish just because the truth had emerged. Lisa had slipped away into the galley, avoiding any more eye contact, but Amanda still felt the sting of her words. Mothers who come prepared, as if she had just woken up one day and decided to neglect her son's well-being. She adjusted Elijah in her arms, feeling him relax against her, his cries dwindling to soft, occasional whimpers. The storm in his little lungs had passed, at least for now. Across the aisle, Henry Caldwell remained standing, watching her with a keen gaze. His expression was one of quiet understanding, in stark contrast to the silent judgment that had filled the cabin moments before. "I hope I didn't overstep," he said, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Amanda managed a small, weary smile. "No, you did more than I could have." He nodded, sinking back into his seat while keeping his gaze fixed on her. "People assume too much," he said, "especially when they don't know the full story." Amanda let out a sharp breath through her nose, tightening her hold on Elijah, who was nestled against her. If only they all knew the entirety of her situation. If only they could see that she wasn't merely an exhausted mother on a flight to Los Angeles. No, she was a woman racing against time. Her phone, still in airplane mode, buzzed with a notification, a reminder of an unread message from her lawyer. She had spotted it before boarding, but fear had held her back from opening it. "Daniel is filing an emergency injunction. You need to be prepared." Those words seared into her mind, a fresh wave of dread washing over her. He had walked away, leaving her to navigate pregnancy on her own. And now, with Elijah finally in her, arms. As she tried to piece a life together for both of them, he wanted to pull that away, too. She had thought she had more time. She hoped she could at least reach Los Angeles first, meet her legal team, and brace herself for the battle ahead. But things were escalating faster than she had imagined. A familiar lump formed in her throat, but she willed it away. Instead, she focused on Elijah, running her fingers through his soft curls as he nestled closer. He was her priority, not Daniel, not the judgment of strangers, not even the relentless exhaustion that shadowed her. After a long absence, Lisa returned, hesitating near Amanda's row, before finally coming to a stop beside her seat. The air was thick with tension. Amanda steeled herself. Lisa spoke softly this time. "Dr. Carter," swallowing hard, she looked genuinely uneasy. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For earlier." Amanda scrutinized her. Lisa's expression, once rigid with irritation, now wore a different look. Remorse. "I shouldn't have assumed," Lisa continued, her voice lower. "It's just I deal with a lot of difficult passengers, but that doesn't excuse how I treated you." Amanda paused. She could have let it slide. She could have nodded politely, offered a smile, and moved on. But fatigue had stripped her of the energy to soften her words. "You made me feel like a bad mother?" Her voice remained calm, yet there was an unmistakable edge. Lisa flinched. She hesitated, searching for the right thing to say. Amanda didn't budge. "I don't expect special treatment. I know it's hard to truly grasp the challenges of flying alone with a baby, but decency is a bare minimum." Lisa's shoulders dropped slightly as she realized this. "You're right," she admitted. "I was out of line." Amanda nodded, accepting the apology, yet aware that some damage runs deep. Not everything heals with just a simple sorry. Lisa lingered for a moment, almost looking for more to say, but finally she nodded slightly and walked away. Elijah shifted in her arms, and Amanda exhaled slowly. A voice from the row ahead caught her off guard. "She meant it, you know." Amanda looked up to see Henry observing her, a thoughtful look on his face. "She's been a flight attendant for years," he continued. "She's encountered plenty of parents who weren't prepared, but she judged you before she even gave you a chance." Amanda smirked and shook her head. "I should probably be used to it by now." Henry tilted his head, curious. "Because you're a mother, or because you're a doctor?" Amanda paused before responding. "Both." Just then, a notification flashed on her phone screen. Even in airplane mode, the preview alone sent a chill through her. From her lawyer. "Call me as soon as you land. It's urgent." Amanda's heart raced. Henry must have noticed her change in demeanor because his brows knit together. "Bad news?" he asked. She forced a neutral expression. "Just legal stuff." He didn't push further, but his gaze stayed on her for a moment before he nodded, as if understanding more than he let on. The plane unexpectedly hit turbulence, causing several passengers to gasp and grip their armrests. Amanda instinctively pulled Elijah closer. As the plane steadied, her thoughts spiraled. Daniel was trying to stop her. He wasn't waiting for the hearing. He was maneuvering every legal avenue to force her hand. Amanda tightened her grip on her phone as the airplane soared through the clouds. The seatbelt sign flickered off, yet she hardly registered it. The urgent message from her attorney echoed in her mind, each word a stark reminder of the dwindling time she had. Daniel was not hesitating. He was pursuing her son at that very moment. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Allowing panic to take over would be futile. However, the mere thought of losing Elijah, of a judge granting Daniel, who had shown no interest in her son, equal rights, made her stomach churn. Elijah shifted against her, his small body warm and trusting. Blissfully unaware of the turmoil surrounding them, she had to safeguard him, no matter the cost. Across the aisle, Henry observed her intently. He had been silent since their last conversation, but Amanda could sense his scrutiny. He watched her as if trying to solve a complex puzzle. Finally, he broke the silence. Do you require assistance? Amanda's head snapped up in surprise. Pardon? Henry leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. I don't wish to intrude, but I can see that look in your eyes. She hesitated. What look? The look of someone preparing for battle. Amanda swallowed hard, adjusting Elijah in her arms. It's nothing I can't manage. Henry nodded, yet his gaze remained unwavering. If you say so. She appreciated his restraint, but the knot in her throat only tightened. Could she truly handle this? A rustling sound near the front caught Amanda's attention. A woman in a charcoal blazer was striding down the aisle with purposeful steps. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek ponytail, her expression inscrutable, until her eyes locked onto Amanda. Then, her lips twisted into a cold smile. Recognizing that expression, Amanda's stomach sank. She was familiar with that face. Rachel, Connors, one of Daniel's attorneys. Amanda's breath quickened, becoming shallow. How had she arrived here? Rachel paused beside Amanda's row, offering a smile. It was the kind of smile Amanda had encountered in courtrooms before, polite yet predatory. Dr. Carter, Rachel said smoothly, as if they were longtime acquaintances. Fancy running into you. Here. Amanda stiffened at the unexpected sight. What brings you on this flight? Rachel tilted her head slightly, a smile playing on her lips, masking her true intentions. Oh, just a little work trip. But now that we've crossed paths, I figured it was the perfect opportunity to give you a little warning. Amanda's grip tightened on the armrest, tension radiating from her. A warning about what? Rachel's tone was sweet, yet it carried an edge. Daniel's emergency injunction? It's advancing more swiftly than anticipated. With a graceful motion, she retrieved a neatly folded document from her blazer pocket. There is a significant likelihood that, upon our arrival, you will be legally obligated to remain in Los Angeles until a judge evaluates the case. Amanda's heart raced. You cannot be serious. Rachel shrugged as she handed over the document. Please take a look. Amanda hesitated before unfolding it. The legal terminology blurred before her eyes, yet the critical phrases stood out ominously. A temporary custody review hearing has been scheduled, potential travel restrictions for the minor child. Her stomach churned. Rachel smirked. Daniel is merely acting in the best interests of his son. Amanda's gaze shot up, fury boiling beneath. Her skin. His son. He had not even acknowledged Elijah until this moment. Rachel's expression remained impassive. People change. Amanda's laughter was tinged with bitterness. No, people become fearful. They realize they are losing control and begin to clutch at anything within reach. Rachel sighed, as if she were the voice of reason. Dr. Carter, I am simply fulfilling my professional duties. However, if I were in your position, I would start preparing for a significant battle. Daniel is not going to relent. Before Amanda could reply, Henry's voice pierced the tension. What exactly qualifies your client to be a father? Rachel turned sharply toward him, clearly unaware that he had been listening. Henry offered her a cool, knowing smile. I presume Daniel has suddenly decided he is ready to take on the responsibilities of parenthood, that he has endured sleepless nights, conducted medical research, and made sacrifices. He gestured toward Amanda, for I see a mother who has done all of that, and I see a lawyer representing a man who abandoned his child, now seeking to assume the role of father when it suits him. Rachel's confident expression faltered. I do not believe we have been introduced. Henry offered his hand, maintaining his smile. Henry's call was effective. The instant his name was spoken, a change occurred. Rachel blinked, a look of recognition appearing in her eyes. Her posture became more upright. She was aware of his identity. Everyone was. The philanthropist, the businessman, the individual with sufficient influence to complicate matters for someone like her. Henry's smile remained intact. I trust your firm has conducted thorough research on Dr. Carter. You should be aware of her background, her accomplishments, and the reasons any reasonable judge will recognize this custody challenge for what it truly is." Rachel's smile vanished. Amanda sensed the shift in dynamics, and for the first time in weeks, a glimmer of hope ignited within her. Rachel adjusted her blazer. "We shall see what the judge decides." With that, she turned and made her way back to her seat. Amanda breathed out slowly, her fingers still gripping the document tightly. She glanced at Henry. "You didn't need to do that." He shrugged. "Some people just need a reminder that they're not in control of everything." Amanda released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. For the first time since she got on this flight, she felt a slight sense of connection, but the fight was far from over. The rest of the journey felt stifling. Amanda focused on the document in her lap, but the words began to blur. Her heartbeat raced, and she instinctively tightened her grip on Elijah. She wasn't naive. She understood how money and power could turn justice into a game, and Daniel Warren had both. On the opposite side of the aisle, Henry observed her intently. He had barely touched his meal, his attention remaining solely on her, as if he was waiting for something. Finally, he broke the silence. "What's on your mind?" Amanda inhaled sharply, forcing herself to sound composed. "I'm thinking about how the man who left us is trying to play the system to take my son away." Henry nodded as if he anticipated her response. "And what comes next?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "I fight, like I always have." His gaze softened. "You're not in this alone." Amanda wanted to believe those words, yet she had heard similar sentiments countless times before, only to see people vanish when things grew difficult. Henry must have sensed her skepticism because he continued, "I really mean it. You saved my grandson's life once. If there's anything I can do, I'm here for you." Before Amanda could reply, Lisa appeared. She paused at the edge of Amanda's row, a hint of guilt on her face. "Dr. Carter." Amanda looked up. Lisa's fingers nervously clutched her serving tray. "I overheard what that woman said about the custody hearing earlier." She swallowed hard. "I just want to say I hope you come out on top." Amanda blinked in surprise. Lisa shifted awkwardly. "I misjudged you before. I know saying sorry doesn't undo that. But I wanted you to know how I feel." Amanda studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." Lisa nodded in return, hesitating, for a brief moment. "And if you need anything, water, tea, an extra blanket, just let me know." Amanda felt a strange warmth in her chest, a delicate thread of human kindness. It wasn't much, but in that moment, it meant everything. As the captain announced their descent into Los Angeles, tightness gripped her chest. Once they landed, the real struggle would begin. She powered her phone back on, immediately flooded with messages from her lawyer. "Daniel's legal team is moving. Fast. Call me the instant you land." Amanda's jaw tightened. She wouldn't let them take her son. Not a chance. The plane jolted as it hit the runway, and Amanda inhaled sharply, trying to steady herself. Henry's voice broke through her anxious thoughts. "Whatever happens next, you'll get through this." Amanda kept her gaze averted, placing a gentle kiss on Elijah's forehead. "We'll see." The moment the plane doors swung open, Amanda felt as though she was stepping into a battlefield. Elijah stirred in her arms, his tiny body warm against her, but Amanda's hold on him only grew tighter. No one was going to take him from her. Her phone buzzed once more. From her lawyer, "Daniel's team is demanding an emergency hearing. We need to act quickly." Amanda let out a sharp breath, barely aware of Henry following her as she stepped off the plane, her legs leaden with fatigue. And then, just beyond the gate, she spotted them. A man in a dark suit, Daniel's attorney, waiting for her. Amanda's stomach twisted, but before she could respond, Henry stepped forward. His presence was commanding, his voice cool and authoritative. "You're not going to ambush her here." The attorney hesitated, It was clear he hadn't anticipated Henry Caldwell being involved. Henry's tone remained steady. She has legal representation. If your client wishes to pursue custody, he can do that in court, not like a coward sending his lawyer to intimidate the mother of his child. The attorney's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he simply said, "We'll see you in court." With that, he turned and walked away. Amanda released a shaky breath. "Thank you," she whispered to Henry. He offered her a knowing look. "Like I said, you're not alone." The courtroom felt cold and unwelcoming. Amanda sat rigidly beside her attorney. Elijah nestled peacefully in her arms. Across the room, Daniel sat in his immaculate suit, portraying the image of a concerned father. It was infuriating. The man, who had once walked away, now found himself sitting before a judge, expressing a newfound desire to be a father. Amanda's lawyer rose to address the court. "Your Honor, Mr. Warren has had no previous involvement in his son's life. He only expressed interest when Dr. Carter pursued full custody. This matter is about control, not fatherhood." In response, Daniel's lawyer argued, "Mr. Warren has experienced a change of heart. He deserves the opportunity to be a part of his son's life." Amanda couldn't hold back any longer. She stood, cradling Elijah close to her. "He doesn't get to walk away when it's convenient and return when it suits him. I am the one who has raised this child. I have made sacrifices for him. Daniel didn't want him. And now when the difficulties have passed, he suddenly does?" Her voice remained strong and unwavering. "That isn't parenting. That's selfishness." The judge considered their words intently. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "The court rules in favor of Dr. Carter. Full custody is granted." Relief washed over Amanda like a tide. She had won. Weeks later, Amanda stood by Elijah's crib, watching his small chest rise and fall with each breath as he slept peacefully. She had fought fiercely for him, and she had triumphed. Just then, her phone buzzed with a message from Henry. "Told you you'd get through this. Take care, Dr. Carter." A smile spread across her face. She leaned down, pressed a soft kiss on Elijah's forehead, and whispered, "We made it." In that moment, a profound sense of peace enveloped her for the first time in a long while.